David, I want to begin with you. I think no one's ringing the alarm bell louder than you on the short-term crisis, which I think many of us understand because we see the headlines. For me, also what's crucial is what we've discussed here, which is the trajectory of where we're going without dramatic intervention.
Oh boy, Julia, you know, before Ukraine, I was already out there with a clarion call that we've got a world food crisis and we're facing the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II. Just when you think it couldn't get any worse over a year ago, you had Ethiopia, then you had Afghanistan, and then the breadbasket of the world. This now got the longest bread lines of the world. And so now, because of this crisis, we're taking food from the hungry to give to the starving. It's absolutely at crisis mode. What do you think is going to happen when you take a nation that normally grows enough food to feed 400 million people and you sideline that? What do you think is going to happen? And so you add the fuel costs, food costs, shipping costs. It's devastating to not just our operations, but to global food security. When you go back to 2007, 2008, and Arab Spring, you look at the economic indicators then, and you had 40 nations with political unrest, riots, protests, and today the conditions are actually worse. So look what you see in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Peru, Pakistan. I could keep going on. That is only a sign of things to come. And so over the next 10 to 12 months, we probably will have a significant, as we are having, a pricing problem. But because of the fertilizer issues that we're facing, the lack of production, not just in Ukraine, but in North America, South America, Africa, Asia, because of droughts and many other factors, we very well could have a food availability problem that's not going to impact just the poorest of the poor, it's going to impact everybody. And that's why I'm excited to be here, because I think the media and the leaders are now beginning to recognize that we have got a problem, Houston, and we've got to zero in on the solutions. Now, it's a perfect storm within a perfect storm. And if we don't get the port of Odessa open, it's only going to compound our problems, because we've got to get those fields back operational. We've got to get those silos full again, but they can't get the silos empty unless we get the ships flowing. It's critical, absolutely critical, because we will have famines around the world. And the number that you mentioned, when I took this job, there were 80 million people marching to starvation. That's not chronic hunger. You mentioned 810 million that are chronically hungry. These are the people that are in shock, acute food insecurity. It was 80 million, and it went to 135 right before COVID. Why? Man-made conflict, climate. COVID comes along, boom, just shocks it up to 276 million people. Now we're looking at 325 million people in what we call IPC 345. Now, here's the most startling fact. Out of that 276 or 325 million, there are 49 million knocking on famine's door in 43 countries. And those are the 43 countries we have got to be extremely concerned about that will result in famine, destabilization, and mass migration if we don't get ahead of this.